Ethernet LANs. In this video, I'm going to talk about again Ethernet LANs. You know that in previous video, we talked about the copper cables in Ethernet, and now I'm going to talk about the fiber optic. And as I discussed before, in Ethernet, we can use both twisted pair cables, copper cables, and also the fiber optic. Here we are discussing the for example, fiber optic. Look at this picture. In this picture, we have 4 patch cord or 4 fiber optic patch cords. Okay, and as you can see, we have different connectors. For example, in the first patch cord, in the first fiber optic patch cord, we are using this type of connector, okay? And here we have another type, here we have another type, and this means that about the fiber we have multiple and different connector types. In this course, we don't need to learn about the connectors of the fiber, but if you want, you can learn about them in Network Plus course or some other courses. Here I am going only to review some of the topics about the for example, fiber optic. Because of that, this is a little beyond the scope of this course. Okay, look at here, this is only for review. It's not necessary to remembering all of the information about the fiber optic in this class. Look at here. Here we have one LC connector. This is the LC connector. This is a small square, for example, port, and we can plug and play directly, convenient and fast with this connector. Okay, and the second connector type is SC connector, big square port, and we can plug and unplug directly, again convenient and fast. This is the ST connector, and after that we have another connector, we call it FC. Okay, the detail is not important, but let me to say that for the fiber optic patch cords, you will find different shapes, different types in the market about the connectors. Because of that, when you are using one product, you need to review the catalog of that product and find which connector is suitable for your product. Let me to talk about the Cisco switch. You know that we are using the fiber optic patch cords, okay, for connecting the switch to, for example, one switch to other switch, one switch to the router or some other devices. Okay, for example, assume that you have one switch in one floor and another switch in another floor, and you can't use the copper cable because the limitation of the distance in the copper cable has only 100-meter capability for distance or for extension. Because of that, when we are using 2 switches in one building with more than 100-meter distance, we need, for example, to use the fiber. Or assume that for other reasons, maybe we have 2 switches near to each other, but we prefer to use this patch cord of the fiber optic. The reasons that we need to choose the fiber optic is different. For example, in some places we have high noise or for example high EMI, electromagnetic interference, or RFI, radio frequency interference. Because of that, in that place we don't want to use the copper cable and we are using the fiber optic. Okay, how we can connect these fiber optic patch cords to the Cisco switch, okay, or some other devices in the for example networks. One of the most common method is using the converters or transceivers to connect the patch cords to the switch. Look at here. In this switch, as you can see, okay, we have different types of connectors. Cisco LAN switches often support other type of connectors. When you buy one of the many models of Cisco switch, you need to think about the mix and number of each type of physical port you want, for example, on that switch. Okay, look at here. For example, in this switch, we have the Ethernet ports, means the copper, the RJ45 port means the copper cable port, and after that here we have 4 extra ports for connecting the fiber optic. This means that in this switch we have 48 RJ45 port, okay, the number is not important, but also we have 4 ports for connecting the fiber optic. But in this switch, as you can see, again we have multiple RJ45 port and 2 connector for connecting the fiber optic. But the question is that how we can connect the fiber optic to these slots. Here we have 4 empty slots and here we have 2 empty slot. Okay, to give its customer flexibility, okay, as to the type of Ethernet links, even after the customer has bought the switch, Cisco switch includes some physical ports, okay, whose port hardware means the transceiver can be changed later after you purchase the switch. For example, here we have these 4 empty slots. You can use different transceivers for connecting different media, different, for example, fiber optic to this transceiver. Let me to talk about it. Look at here. This is one of the old models of the Cisco switch. Okay, in the old days we used one special converter. We called it Gigabit Ethernet interface card, or GBIC. We call it GBIC. This is the GBIC. The GBIC should be injected into these slots, okay, and after that we can connect the fiber optic to these 2 slots of the GBIC. Look at here, this is the SC connector. Okay, look at here, this is the SC, similar to this port. When you are injecting this GBIC into this slot, empty slot, you can connect the SC connector, means the fiber optic patch cord, to the GBIC, and after that you connected the switch to the fiber optic. The function of the GBIC is converting the electrical signal to optical pulse and also optical pulse to the electrical signal. Gigabit Ethernet interface card, or GBIC, is the original form factor for a removable transceiver for gigabit interface, and the size of this interface, this transceiver, is larger than the SFP. The second type, the newest type, is SFP. Look at here. In this switch, we can see in the same space we have 4 empty slot, but here we have only 2 empty slot. The reason is that the GBIC size is larger than the SFP. Here we are using the newest transceiver, the newer transceiver. We call them a small form pluggable, or SFP. Briefly SFP. We are calling this transceivers SFP. Okay, here as you can see we can inject 4 SFP, and this means that in the same space we have the chance to connecting more fiber optic links. For example, we can connect this switch with 4 links to other switch, but here we can connect this switch with only 2 connector. A small form factor, or SFP, okay, is the replacement of the GBICs used on gigabit interface with a smaller size, taking less space on the side of the networking card or switch. As you can see, we can attach it to this slot. After that we need to use the LC connector. The LC connector suitable for SFP, and the SC connector suitable for the GBIC. Also we have another newer method, and this is the newer transceiver. We call it a small form pluggable plus, or SFP plus. The same size, it has the same size with the SFP, as you can see, but used on 10 gigabit per second interface. Okay, the plus refers to the increase in speed compared to SFP. The size of these 2 type of SFP is same, but this SFP plus is using for 10 gigabit per second, and this SFP is using for the 1 gigabit per second. 10 gigabit, 1 gigabit, that's it. Okay, because of that, now we can understand how we can connect a fiber optic patch cord or fiber optic links to a Cisco switch, or for example in some cases to a Cisco router. First, we need to buy one SFP or SFP plus today, and then we can inject this SFP and SFP plus to our switch, and after that we can connect the fiber to the for example SFP or SFP plus. Don't forget that when you are using different media types, different fiber optic types, you need to buy different converters, different transceivers. This means that, for example, maybe one of these SFPs is suitable for short wavelength fiber optic, and another transceiver is suitable for the for example a long wavelength. Look at here, maybe you can see 10G base SRS means short wavelength. This means that we are using this SFP plus for 850 or 860 nanometer only. We can't use this GBIC for the, for example, long wavelength fiber 130 10 nanometer. Okay, because of that, when you are choosing the SFP or SFP plus, you need to first analyze the media that you are using in your networks. This is a gift from the Cisco switch to the customer, that the customer, after buying the switch, can select which type of connector it needs. For example, here we have some 4 empty slot. When we are using the long wavelength, we can buy the SFP of the long wavelength, and after that we can connect that cable, that fiber optic, to our switch. Or when we are using short wavelength, we can buy the converter for short wavelength, and because of that we can connect different media types to our switch only with selecting the suitable SFP or SFP plus model, and after that we can use the switch. And this is a flexibility for the customer about that it doesn't need to buy different switches for different, for example, media. Let me to show you one picture. In this picture we have a Cisco switch. Okay, in this Cisco switch we have a multiple Ethernet RJ45 connector. Here you can see it, you can see them, and also here, as you can see, we have 2 slots for SFP plus. Here we can see the SFP plus, and after that we can connect the fiber optic cable to this SFP plus connect or transceiver, and after that we can connect it to the Cisco switch. Okay, in this Cisco we have a Cisco switch with one of the swappable transceiver, but maybe you need to attach more than one SFP plus to the switch, and this means that according to our need we can choose which switch is suitable for our networks. For example, how many ports we need, how many ports should be the RJ45, and how many ports should be for example empty slot for SFP or SFP plus. Also, this is possible that in one network interface card, means the card we can use it for connecting our computer or server to the networks. We are experiencing again these SFPs. Look at here. Here we have one NIC. This is a fiber optic NIC. This card can be installed into the, for example, one server or one PC. After that, we have again one slot for SFP or SFP plus. We can attach this SFP or SFP plus to this for example slot, and after that we can attach our fiber optic link with, for example, LC connector to this SFP, and finally we connected the our PC or our server to the fiber optic network. And this is important that to know that only the devices that have a special type of connectors can connect to the fiber optic